Hi everybody, Namaskar. In this particular video, as the video and the topic has been requested by many, this video is going to cover a very controversial news that has been there since past 10 days or so, and we are not going to do any kind of media trials. We are not going to give our perspective to the case, but what we are going to do is we are going to look at the topics, the law that are concerned with the subject, with the news, and also the ethical angle to the controversy that has been linked. We are going to see that because this topic is now a probable GS mains topic, the upcoming mains examination. So this topic can be there in the mains examination that is going to be held in the month of September, right? So we are going to talk about a very controversial case of SDM Jyoti Maurya and his husband Alok Maurya. बहुत डिस्टर्बिंग केस है ये, ठीक है. द केस इज क्वेश्चनिंग ह्यूमैनिटी, द केस इज क्वेश्चनिंग द इंस्टीट्यूशन ऑफ मैरिज, द केस इज क्वेश्चनिंग the moral fabric that is associated with the society. The case is even questioning the moral character that a civil servant should bear, right? तो बहुत disturbing case है ये. Let's have a look. I'll be briefly going into the background of the case, and then we are going to talk about the laws that are associated with the case and also the ethical angle to the case. That is probity in governance. So the case is about Mrs. Jyoti Maurya, who is currently a civil servant, and she's a SDM. तो ये बरेली की न्यूज़ है. यहाँ पे न्यूज़ में ये आ रहा था कि and the case is now into the news since last 10 or 12 days, but every day there are new developments that are being taken into the news. आज तो कुछ ऑडियो वगैरह भी रिलीज़ हुए हैं इन दोनों वाइफ हस्बैंड के बीच में. देन बीच में कुछ ऐसे वीडियोज़ रिलीज़ हुए थे और जहाँ पे it was seen that Miss Jyoti Maurya is abusing her husband and she's probably beating him or something. We can't show the video here in the lecture, but yeah, there were disturbing videos जो कि रिलीज़ हुए थे in which it is clearly seen that Jyoti Maurya is doing some sort of domestic violence onto her husband. क्या केस है, क्या बैकग्राउंड है, let's have a look. So they are married since 2009 probably, and Ms. Jyoti Maurya was selected into the PCS, the Public Service Commission of Uttar Pradesh, and she's currently a serving SDM, right? So back in 2020 में इनका सिलेक्शन होता है और पूरा सिलेक्शन का क्रेडिट जो जाता है इनके थ्रू, वो जाता है इनके फादर इन लॉ को एंड टू हर हस्बैंड. तो शी हरसेल्फ क्रेडिटेड होल सक्सेस, इनकी जो पूरी सक्सेस थी इन्होंने अपने फादर इन लॉ को और अपने हस्बैंड को दिया. But today, after 3 years down the line, the case has really taken a next level. Case has taken a very another level and a very twisted angle of the case. यहाँ पे adultery, bribery, corruption, everything has come into the picture, right? So there were videos जहाँ पे she is cursing her husband and in-laws, but also she has accused her husband of in the charges of dowry. So she has accused her husband and her in-laws in the charges of dowry just because इनके हस्बैंड ने इन्हें एक illicit एक्स्ट्रा मैरिटल अफेयर में किसी के साथ इन्हें पकड़ लिया. एंड ही वॉज सो हम्बल. देन ऑल्सो ही ओनली वॉन्टेड दैट थिंग शुड बी ऑन प्रॉपर लाइन्स एंड ही रिक्वेस्टेड कि इसको ख़त्म करो एंड लेट्स हैव अ सॉर्टेड लाइफ. बट देन शी टुक अनदर स्टेप. She started accusing her in-laws, her husband, out of the allegations of dowry and domestic violence. उसके बाद ये केस पब्लिक में आता है, वायरल होता है, because her husband is also now getting all the proofs and getting all the evidences इनके खिलाफ. जो भी है उनके पास, इन्होंने इनफैक्ट एक डायरी भी दी है कोर्ट को जिसमें ये क्लियरली मेंशन्ड है that she is ब्राइबिंग आउट ऑफ द शुगर मिल्स, तो जो गन्ने की फैक्ट्री होती है जहाँ से चीनी बनता है, तो वहाँ से इनको हर महीने 6 लाख रुपए का इनको ब्राइब मिलता है। तो इन सब का रिकॉर्ड है इनके पास, इनकी एक डायरी में, और इनके हस्बैंड ने उस डायरी को आउट किया है, कोर्ट को दिया है। एनीवेज, इनके केस में जो जस्टिस है, जो डिसीजन है, वो अल्टीमेटली कोर्ट को लेना है। वी आर नोवेयर गोइंग टू डिसाइड, और वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट हु इज रॉन्ग, व्हाट इज रॉन्ग, हु हैज डन व्हाट। आई एम नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन दैट, ठीक है। द ओनली थिंग इज, after this case, there are 2 takeaways from this case, which can be helpful in your ethics paper, and also ek humanitarian ground pe if I talk, because of this lady, now what will happen is people, especially in those areas in UP, in Bihar, jahan pe वैसे ही लड़कियों के लिए it is very complicated, it is very difficult for a girl to get her education properly, so that she could stand on her feet, or she can do whatever she wants to professionally. Now after this case, if a girl in those areas, if she wants to prepare, people would be hesitant, right? People would be hesitant that whether we should actually, allow her to prepare or to sit for any such examination, because once she'll be in power, she can misuse that power really well. तो moral fabric जो है society का, वो disturb हो रहा है, and also people would stop believing in the institution of marriage after this case, ठीक है? Because 10 to 12 years की marriage, उसके बाद इनके twins बच्चे भी हैं, they have kids of their own, and after all this, if a lady is doing this, see, we have many such examples. India में we shouldn't have this example in the society, that a civil servant, सबसे पहली बात, she is a civil servant, she is an ideal character for a civil servant in the society, and on top of that she is doing such things. So this example shouldn't be there for the younger generations, for the children, for people who are aspiring to be a civil servant, right? So there are many such examples of a female who is as successful in her professional life, and also she is very well managing, or very, very well has managed her family also. We have an example of Sunita Williams, we have an example of Kalpana Chawla, then we have another example जहाँ पे इंदिरा नूई का example है, wherein she managed her family so well, she managed her marriage life so well, and she grabbed the topmost position in a very topmost company, that is Coca-Cola, right? तो people are setting examples, ऐसे भी examples हैं जहाँ पे after the support of their in-laws, after the support of their family, the females, the women are really doing well, ठीक है? But nonetheless, this example is rather disturbing. This example has created some sort of disturbance, and also if अगर पर्सनल लाइफ को हटा भी दे, if I talk about the professional side, ठीक है, being a civil servant, how are you expected to be like this? How can you do this? ठीक है, तो anyways, let's move on. And see, the background of the case is, she is a provincial civil service officer in UP Bareilly, and has taken social media by storm after she was accused of cheating and corruption by her husband. Oh, by the way, there's a love triangle going on in between the case. She is into a romantic relationship with another man who is the deputy commandant of home guards, right? And this person is also accused into various adultery cases. We'll be talking about adultery in detail. So this person is also accused in various adultery cases. इनके ऐसे कई सारे केसेस रिपोर्ट हुए हैं जहाँ पे not one, he has several such cases, several such affairs out of his marriage also. तो आज भी कुछ न्यूज़ अपडेट हो रही थी कि इनको लेके भी, इनके सस्पेंशन को लेके बात चल रही है or whatsoever. So she was into relationship with this person, and when she was caught and when she was asked to leave all that, she started playing this game of accusing her husband, of accusing her in-laws for dowry and for domestic violence. Let's talk about adultery now. तो सी यहाँ पे अब हमारे को ये इम्पोर्टेंट है कि हम आईपीसी के सेक्शंस, बिकॉज वी हैव सीन इन लास्ट 2 years दैट यूपीएससी इज मूविंग बियॉन्ड द लक्ष्मीकांत थिंग और बियॉन्ड द बेसिक स्टैटिक सिलेबस. तो द यूपीएससी इज मूविंग टुवर्ड्स द क्रिमिनल लॉज ऑल्सो. ठीक है, प्रिजन्स एक्ट, देन फरलो, देन परोल, ये सारे क्वेश्चंस आए थे लास्ट 2 साल में. इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर अस to dig deeper into every topic and understand. Number 1 is section 497 in the Indian Penal Code. 497 is adultery. Adultery भी न्यूज़ में रही है पिछले कई सालों में. 2018-19 से काफ़ी न्यूज़ में रही है, अभी भी कुछ कुछ बातें उसमें चल रही हैं. We'll be talking about it in detail. So what has been mentioned in section 497 of IPC? It is mentioned that whoever has sexual intercourse with a person who is and whom he knows or has reason to believe to be the wife of another man without the consent or connivance of that man, such sexual intercourse not amounting to offense of rape is guilty of the offense of adultery and shall be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 5 years or with fine or both. In such case wife shall not be punishable or abettor. तो basically ये तो mentioned है IPC के अंदर में, but the thing is justice should be gender neutral. Things like adultery should be gender neutral. ठीक है, it has been said that earlier कि the man is going to be accused, he is going to be accused out of the adultery case and women shouldn't be punished. But union legislature ने, union parliament ने इस चीज़ को question किया था. We'll further see and we'll see कि now adultery is decriminalized and how it has been done so. So this is what is mentioned under section 497 of IPC. Supreme Court of India decriminalized adultery more than 4 years ago in a landmark judgment, Joseph Shine versus Union of India in 2018. Now this case is very important for us to know because mains के अंदर में if we have to substantiate our points, ठीक है, तो we can clearly mention the case and it would fetch us extra marks. Then section 497 of Indian Penal Code on adultery along with section 198 of CRPC, that is Criminal Procedure Code, were held to be unconstitutional on the premise that these provisions were violative of Article 14, 15 and 21 of the Constitution of India. So 14, 15 and 21 means discrimination can't be done on the basis of race, caste, gender. तो gender basis पे discrimination हो रहा था because 497 के अंदर में ये था कि if a man is being accused of adultery, अगर adultery perform कर रहा है, if a man is having an illicit affair out of his marriage, so the person is going to be punished, but a woman, if she is going to have an affair out of her marriage, she won't be punished. तो ये वाला जो केस था, इसको लेके सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इसीलिए डीक्रिमिनलाइज कर दिया अडल्ट्री को. सो इन दिस रिगार्ड यूनियन गवर्नमेंट हैज सॉट क्लैरिफिकेशन फ्रॉम द कोर्ट saying that any promiscuous or adulterous acts should be allowed to be governed by relevant sections of the Army Act, the Navy Act and the Air Force Act, being special legislations by the virtue of Article 33 of the Constitution. The court has recently held that in Joseph Shine, it was not at all concerned with the effect and operation of the relevant provisions, and it is not as if the court approved adultery. तो ऐसा नहीं कि कोर्ट ने adultery को approve किया है, but the case was not at all concerned with the effect and operation of relevant provisions. तो कोर्ट ने ये clarify किया, ठीक है. तो now let's understand what exactly is adultery when it comes to India. तो India में adultery है क्या? लीगल प्रोविजंस अडल्ट्री को लेके क्या है, लेट्स हैव अ लुक. सो अडल्ट्री इज अ वॉलंटरी सेक्सुअल रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन अ मैरिड पर्सन एंड समवन हु इज नॉट देयर स्पाउस. तो इफ अ मैरिड पर्सन इज हैविंग एन illicit affair out of his marriage and having a sexual relationship, that is voluntary. So both the parties are having a voluntary relationship who is not his or her spouse. In India, prior to this judgment of Joseph Shine versus Union of India, इसमें इस judgment के पहले 2018 के पहले adultery को criminal offense under section 497 treat किया जाता था, consider किया जाता था before 2018. तो 2018 के पहले adultery was considered as a criminal offense. This law made it a crime for a man to have sexual intercourse with the wife of another man without that man's consent. तो पहले जो ये लॉ था उसमें if a person is having sexual relationship with the wife of another man without his consent, in that case the law is making crime for this man who is having the affair and not for the women. So the law treated women as the property of their husbands and did not provide for any punishment for women who committed adultery. तो 2018 के पहले ये बात आई कि this law, section 497 of IPC Indian Penal Code, this law is treating adultery and women as the property of their husbands, and it is not providing any punishment for the women who is committing adultery. So currently in India, adultery is not considered a crime, but this is a very important point. ठीक है, prelims को लेके भी statement based point very important है, which is it can be a ground for divorce under Hindu Marriage Act 1955 and Special Marriage Act 1954. तो दो adultery is no more a crime in India. ठीक है, 2018 के बाद इस judgment के बाद adultery is no more a crime in India, but this can be a ground for getting divorce from your spouse. So adultery, if there's a case with you, then adultery can be a ground that you can divorce your partner. This is a very important point. Then in addition, adultery can be considered as misconduct under the relevant service conduct rules for government servants including armed forces. तो armed forces या various service sector जो government sector है उसके अंदर में adultery जो है उसको हम एक misconduct treat करेंगे under the relevant service conduct rules. However, any disciplinary action taken by employer must have a direct or indirect nexus with the employee's duties and cannot be arbitrary or infringe on their right to privacy. So basically nobody is going to infringe your right to privacy, nobody is going to intervene into your privacy, and nobody is going to take any disciplinary action out of your intervening. लेकिन अगर ये केस ऊपर उठ के आता है that the employer is having a direct or indirect nexus with the employee's duties, in that case there can be a strict action to it. A disciplinary action could be taken against that thing. Now again this is a list of important judgments on adultery. Why? Because we need to understand the chronology कि कैसे कैसे adultery को हमने पहले criminalize किया फिर decriminalize किया और क्या status है इसका, and also we can substantiate these points into our answers as well अगर adultery के ऊपर question आता है तो पहला है which is IPC Indian Penal Code 1860. इसके अंदर में जो section 497 है Indian Penal Code का, which is dealing with adultery, until it was struck down by Supreme Court in 2018. Then Yusuf Aziz versus State of Bombay 1954. This is a very landmark case. The case upheld the constitutional validity of Section 497. Mind this, the case upheld the constitutional validity of Section 497 of IPC, stating that the law did not discriminate against men and that adultery law protected the sanctity of marriage. तो यूसुफ अजीज वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ बॉम्बे के केस में कोर्ट ने ये हेल्ड किया कि सेक्शन 497 की कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैलिडिटी सही है, दैट शुड बी अपहेल्ड, एंड सेकेंडली लॉ इज नॉट डिस्क्रिमिनेटिंग अगेंस्ट मेन एंड दैट अडल्ट्री लॉ प्रोटेक्टेड द सैंक्टिटी ऑफ मैरिज. दिस इज व्हाट यूसुफ अजीज वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ बॉम्बे के केस में हमें कंक्लूजन मिलता है. देन सौमित्री विष्णु वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया के केस में सुप्रीम कोर्ट हेल्ड दैट सेक्शन 497 of IPC was violative of Article 14 and 15 of the Constitution of India, as it only criminalized sexual intercourse with a married woman without consent of her husband and did not punish for adultery. Discrimination on the basis of race, caste, gender. तो gender वाले aspect पे ये वाला law जो है वो violate हो रहा है, violate कर रहा था. देन वी रेवती वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया केस 1988. इस केस में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये हेल्ड किया कि सेक्शन 497 was discriminatory against women and violated the Constitution of India, and observed that adultery is a private matter between adults and state has no business to interfere. तो इस केस में तो clearly ये upheld हो गया कि state has no business to interfere and that this is a private matter in between the adults, right? Lastly, जो सबसे latest केस है which is 2018 का जोसेफ शाइन वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया का केस, इसमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने सेक्शन 497 को अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल हेल्ड किया, स्ट्रक डाउन किया, holding that provision was archaic and it violated the fundamental right to equality and personal liberty enshrined in the Constitution. Article 14, Article 15 and Article 21. ठीक है, इन cases की importance काफ़ी ज़्यादा है. This was the legal aspect of this case, of this controversy which we just saw. We are moving ahead towards the ethical angle to the case, that is probity in governance. Ethics को लेके ये case study काफ़ी important है, and this topic especially the probity. There are 7 principles for a civil servant to be ethical, ठीक है, in his professional life, in his personal life, and more so over if we see it this way, if a person is not behaving in her personal life, if she is misconducting or misbehaving, it can be anybody, a male or a female. If she is misbehaving in her personal life, how can she believed to be behaving? How can she believed to bear a good moral character in her professional life as well, right? तो इसीलिए सिविल सर्विसेज के एस्पेक्ट में प्रॉबिटी की जो बात है वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, एंड possessing a comprehensive understanding of moral principle and ethics is the attribute of probity, right? Building the probity in governance involves more than just refraining from corrupt or dishonest action. It refers to moral behavior that upholds community ideals and ensures justice, accountability, transparency, all of which foster public trust and promote civic management. In contrast to merely avoiding unethical or corrupt behavior in one's personal and professional life, probity reflects the absolutist way of living in which one upholds the highest goals and standard. तो यार basically the thing is कि the civil servant, if I talk about, अब उस perspective पे चलते हैं, she being a civil servant, if she is not behaving well in her personal life, if she is not having a good moral character, if she is not possessing such a character, ठीक है, then it's really difficult for public, for people to trust her on her professional decisions, or for the government or for any state. It is really difficult, it is really problematic to trust person of this kind who is not bearing a good moral character in her personal life. How can she trust it upon being really well in her professional stage, in her professional aspect? So there are these aspects to the probity. Commitment to constitutional principles is the utmost superior one. You have to bear, being a civil servant, or being a citizen of the India or bearing any post in the country. If you are a citizen of India, you have to possess, you have to be committed to constitutional principles. Then the 7 principles of public services include also selflessness, right? Selflessness means the decisions that should be only made in public interest by those holding public office and for the sake of obtaining money or any such monetary gains for the sake of their family, their friends. This should be avoided. Then another aspect of probity is integrity, means holders of public office should avoid putting themselves in any kind of debt to outside parties or groups. Okay, you should be integral enough, and that might impact how they carry their official obligations. So basically, you have to ignore, you have to stay away from any sort of debt to the outside group, to outside public, and you have to be integral enough. Then objectivity, holders of public office should make decisions based on merit while performing its duty, such as appointing the public officials, granting contracts, or suggesting people for prizes and perks. Then comes accountability. So any public officer is accountable to his decisions and actions to the public and must submit themselves to whatever scrutiny is appropriate to their office. Then there should be honesty, there should be openness, transparency, confidentiality, management of conflict of interest, dedicated and selfless public service, impartiality. These are the principles that a public officer should hold. And where the case is concerned, इस case में तो ये सारी चीज़ें बिल्कुल question पे हैं. The case, the violations that she is accusing to her husband, which is of domestic violence and dowry. Yeah, there's a very logical aspect to this. Is जितने भी ये मीडिया में न्यूज़ आ रही हैं, जो भी चीज़ें लीक हो रही हैं, जो भी एविडेंसेस आ रहे हैं, जो भी बातें चल रही हैं, if we go by the logic, right? Can a woman accuse her husband? Can a woman accuse her family or her parents-in-laws after 10 to 12 years of marriage that they are forcing her for dowry or something like that? Secondly, 2020 mein the lady is giving all the credit of her success to her father-in-law, to her husband, and now just because she is caught into something which is illicit, which is illegal, she is accusing them with any sort of allegations that she can have, that she can put onto them. So now this angle comes into picture, which is domestic violence against men. ये भी माना जा रहा है कि अगेंस्ट आलोक मौर्य उनको काफ़ी डेथ थ्रेट्स मिल रहे हैं, उनके खिलाफ उन्हें काफ़ी भड़काया जा रहा है, एंड ही इज़ गेटिंग कॉल्स ऑफ murders and death threats, right? So domestic violence against men, if we talk about the perspective of this aspect against men, are there ample of laws, are there ample of legal provisions that are securing or that are justifying, that are giving justice to the men of the society? ठीक है, तो violence against men by women is a general and a very common practice in today's date, and this is the question that comes into play, which is men as well as women both are victims of gender-based violence. So men and women both are victims of gender-based violence. And अगर हम इंडिया की बात करें जहाँ पे male-dominated society चली आ रही है centuries से, in that case also people find it hard to believe that men can be victim of domestic violence. ठीक है, there may be a reason why domestic violence against men is not recognized in India, लेकिन contrary to the popular belief that we are living in a male-dominated society and can be psychologically, physically, emotionally, financially abused by his own wife. ठीक है, तो it is hard to believe, but given the existing laws in the country, there are no laws as such who are going to protect the rights of the man, who are going to protect the sanctity, the right of the man in such a case जहाँ पे उनको falsely accused किया जा रहा हो. ठीक है, this is the case where we saw Mr. Alok Maurya is being falsely accused out of these things, and no logical reasonings out of the case, out of the allegations जो उनके ऊपर, उनके father के ऊपर, उनकी family के ऊपर लगाए जा रहे हैं. तो there should be a proper regulated laws for male as well. Justice is gender neutral. Justice is not just for women. Justice is for gender neutral. Justice is gender neutral, and it should be for both male and female, for both a man and a woman, right? Whatever the case may be, इस case में जो भी बातें हैं, justice should be delivered to the person who is right, to the person who is being falsely accused of any such case, right? So this was it about this video. ज़्यादातर important जो है इस वीडियो के लिए वो ये है कि we have to understand the probity in governance. We have to understand the legal provisions of adultery, of the sections that are being dealt in this case, which is 497, 498. And also adultery in detail, because adultery वैसे भी न्यूज़ में रहता है. ठीक है, तो मेंस पर्सपेक्टिव से ये वीडियो था. केस के ऊपर we are not interested, and we shouldn't also be talking about it. We are not here for media trials or something like that. But yeah, I have extracted the background so that we have the facts with us, and we can talk about the provisions, the legal provisions, and the real fact, which is कि male or a man जिसके खिलाफ जिसको abuse किया जा रहा है, उसके लिए क्या justice है, क्या laws हैं, and there should be regulated laws for man also who is being falsely accused, who is being emotionally, psychologically, physically, financially abused, right? So this was it for this video, and thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.